The morning sun was barely cresting the horizon when I saw Daisy hobbling across the pasture, her leg caught in a rusted steel trap that gleamed with cruel intent. She mooed, a sound raw with pain and defiance, her black and white coat streaked with blood as she dragged herself toward the barn. My coffee mug hit the dirt, and I sprinted toward her, socks soaking in the dew, heart pounding with the sickening fear she might not make it. Daisy's eyes burned with a fury that said she wasn't going down without a fight. Kneeling beside her, I wrestled the trap with a crowbar, my hands shaking with rage. Etched into the metal was a name, Hunters Association of Clayton County. And in that moment, I knew exactly who was behind this. Margaret Hensley, the HOA president from hell. Margaret ruled Pinewood Meadows, the sub-BVY town that had sprouted like a weed against my ranch's border. What was sold as a quiet retirement community had become her personal fiefdom, where she wielded her clipboard like a scepter. For years I'd endured her nonsense fines for my tractors, excessive noise, citations for my windmills, VY soil disruption, even a warning that my rooster crowed with unacceptable bravado. I'd gritted my teeth through it all, but this? Letting hunters onto my land, setting traps where my animals roamed free? This was a declaration of war. Daisy, tough as barbed wire, Sir V.Y. Ved, thanks to Dr. Vargas, a vet with the bedside manner of a saint and the forearms of a blacksmith. She's lucky, Dr. Vargas said, bandaging Daisy's leg. That trap was illegal. It wasn't for deer, it could take down a bear. Daisy snorted, maybe in agreement, maybe just passing gas, but I felt her fire. Fueled by fury and a greasy diner taco, I stormed to the HOA office, a glorified shed with a wilted fern and a coffee maker that smelled like burned regret. Margaret sat there, sipping almond milk latte from a mug that read, "Saw not today, chaos saw." She didn't look up. "You let hunters onto my land," I growled. "Good morning to you too," she said, eyes on her paperwork. "I didn't let anyone on your property. The HOA authorized wildlife management in the nearby woods. For safety. We've had a coyote problem." "You mean the one that stole your granola bar?" I shot back. "It was feral," she gasped, clutching her mug. "It had crumbs." She waved me off, claiming my livestock had wandered into an authorized zone. Authorized zone? That was my backyard. She mentioned Tom and Hank, the hunters, saying they were licensed and vested. I found them by the tree lean, lounging in a beat-up Chevy truck plastered with stickers like "Saw Honk if you love Sasquatch Saw" and "Saw protected by guns and guts Saw." Tom, in a camo vest over a faded cartoon tee, blinked at me. "We set traps in the woods," he said. "Those woods are my land," I snapped. Hank, scratching a beard that looked like it housed wildlife, mumbled. "Margaret said the HOA had jurisdiction." Jurisdiction? She had none. When I pointed out the bear trap, Tom shrugged. "Didn't have deer traps in stock." I might have lost it right there, but Daisy, tethered nearby, let out a bellow that made them flinch. "We'll pull the traps," Hank muttered. "No harm meant." No harm? Daisy's leg begged to differ. That night, my security footage revealed something chilling. At 2:14 a.m., the feed cut to static. When it flickered back, a hooded figure slunk past the barn, carrying something heavy, a shovel, maybe a bolt cutter. They paused, stared at the camera, and the feed died. By morning, a note was pinned to my porch with a pocket knife: "Saw drop it, or more than cows get hurt." Saw sleep didn't come that night. Daisy stood by the window, chewing cud like a soldier on watch, her eyes daring anyone to try her. This wasn't about a trap anymore. This was about control. Margaret had underestimated me, and she was about to learn how wrong she was. I started with coffee and my grandfather's old survey map, confirming my land stretched well beyond Pinewood Meadows' boundary. Those woods? Mine, no question. But Margaret didn't care about facts. Sheriff Lena rolled up that afternoon, her boots crunching gravel, her sunglasses slipping as she read the note. "This got ugly fast," she said, glancing at Daisy. "From HOA gripes to threats in 2 days? I don't do half measures." I replied. Lena sighed. Margaret's got friends, county officials, even the mayor. She's untouchable. Not if I dig deeper, I said. Lena promised to file a report, but I knew I'd have to do the heavy lifting. With a drone from a fair raffle, I scouted the woods where Daisy got caught. Tire tracks scarred the dirt, cigarette butts and snack wrappers littered the ground, and then I found a clipboard with a map labeled SAW Expansion Area, Wildlife Grid SAW, stamped with the HOA's seal. My gut churned. Margaret wasn't just meddling, she was trying to swallow my land, redrawing boundaries to claim what wasn't hers. As I headed back, a twig snapped. I spun, expecting a critter, but it was Hank, clutching a trail cam. You shouldn't be here alone, he said, nervous. Margaret swore this was legal. Said you wouldn't care. Wouldn't care about my cow's leg? I snapped. He hesitated. She mentioned annexation through active use. Said it's temporary. Annexation through active use, a loophole where someone could claim land by maintaining it unchallenged. Most wouldn't dare, but Margaret? She was that unhinged. I called my neighbor, Sam, who'd fought Pinewood Meadows over his dogs. Menacing stare. She tried that on me last year, he said, nearly choking on his soda. Called it safety corridors. I thought it was a bluff. He sent me every notice she'd mailed him, vague legalese, dotted line maps, contracts that screamed manipulation. Margaret was staging a silent takeover. Lena returned the next day, her face grim. She's filed forms to expand HOA control, including your land. Calls it the Pinewood Preservation Project. Tom's her nephew, and Hank's on her payroll. My fists clenched as I watched Daisy chew cud, her eyes promising vengeance. She's pushing for an emergency vote, Lena added. If it passes, she could restrict your land, even EVYC to your animals. She'll have to go through me, I said. Lena smirked. Better have a plan. My plan was reckless, petty, and glorious. I recruited Jake and Milo, 2 teens banned from the county fair for a flaming piñata mishap. They were thrilled to help with theatrics. I planted fake survey stakes along the HOA's walking trail, marked with signs reading SAW pending commercial zipline development SAW. Margaret showed up in hours, ripping out a stake, her face redder than a beet. What's this? She shrieked. Just a project, I said, sipping lemonade. Thought I'd use that land you're so fond of. You can't build a zip line, she spat. You can't annex a ranch, I fired back. She stormed off, but I wasn't done. Hank, growing a spine, called me that night. Margaret's bribing board members for the vote. Tom Bailey's scared of lawsuits. You ready to flip? I asked. I'll testify, he whispered. The HOA meeting was in Pinewood's tacky rec hall. I arrived with Lena, who'd taken leave to avoid sheriff conflicts. We rigged mics, planted allies in the crowd, and stationed Jake and Milo outside. Margaret strode in, lanyard swinging, launching into a speech about ecological balance and expanding HOA oversight. When she called for a vote, I stood. I've got EVY Denke, I said, handing Lena a flash drive. The screen lit up with Hank confessing Margaret's trap scheme, Tom boasting about his jerky pay, and Margaret's voice sneering. He's too soft for that cow. Best of all? Footage of Margaret yelping as she stepped in her own trap. The room froze. Margaret stammered. This is illegal. Lena grinned. All public or volunteered. And your threat notes ink matches your agenda pen. Daisy mooed twice outside. Jake and Milo unleashed chaos, banners dropped, reading SAW Justice for Daisy, hands off our land SAW. Confetti rained, and a cardboard Daisy in a sheriff's hat rolled in on a vacuum bot. The crowd erupted. Board members turned on Margaret. One demanded an audit, another fainted. Neighbors chanted, "No more Margaret!" She fled, humiliated. By Monday, her presidency was revoked, and an ethics probe launched. Hank did community service, building safe fences for my pasture. Tom vanished, last seen in a U-Haul with a scared cat. Daisy became a legend. Kids painted her mural, TikToks went viral, and someone crowned her with edible flowers. But Margaret wasn't done. A week later, an envelope slid under my door from a Dallas real estate firm, offering millions for my ranch. They'd been negotiating with the HOA. Margaret had tried to sell my land for a gated resort. I burned the letter in my fire pit, Daisy watching like she approved. This wasn't just a ranch, it was my life. I grabbed a pen, ready to draft a countersuit. Margaret wanted a war, but she forgot one thing: ranchers don't quit, and neither do cows.